Justin Baldoni exonerated by new evidence in a resurfaced copyright case as Blake Lively legal war heads to trial. Byline: Legal and Entertainment Desk. Date: February 19, 2026. The bitter, multi-million-dollar legal war between It Ends With Us co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has taken another dramatic turn, just days after a mandatory settlement conference failed to resolve their explosive lawsuit. New evidence has surfaced, effectively exonerating Baldoni in a separate copyright infringement dispute. The copyright case, which Lively's legal camp allegedly attempted to weaponize to establish a pattern of misconduct by Baldoni and his legal team, has instead collapsed under the weight of newly disclosed documents. As the two Hollywood heavyweights prepare for a highly anticipated civil trial scheduled for May 18, 2026, the collapse of this peripheral copyright narrative marks a significant victory for the embattled director and actor. Here is the complete, in-depth breakdown of the copyright exoneration, the failed settlement talks, and the origins of the most acrimonious Hollywood feud of the decade. The copyright exoneration explained. As the primary lawsuit between Lively and Baldoni intensified throughout 2025 and early 2026, Lively's legal team reportedly sought to expand their offensive by scrutinizing Baldoni's past legal dealings and the conduct of his high-profile attorney, Brian Friedman. Lively's narrative has heavily relied on painting Baldoni and his Wayfarer Studios production company as entities that engage in unethical behavior and widespread smear campaigns. To bolster this narrative, attention was directed toward a 2021 copyright lawsuit filed against Baldoni by Travis Flores. Flores had previously alleged that Baldoni infringed on his copyright regarding a script that bore similarities to the hit film 5 Feet Apart, which Baldoni directed. Recently, the surviving spouse of Flores filed a lawsuit against Brian Friedman, who had previously represented Flores before taking on Baldoni as a client, accusing the attorney of malpractice, breach of privacy, and defamation. Lively supporters and legal strategists allegedly floated this lawsuit as proof that Baldoni was guilty of intellectual property theft and that his lawyer was compromised. However, evidence presented in court this week completely dismantled that narrative. In a motion to strike the lawsuit against him under California's anti-SLAPP statutes, Friedman revealed the actual, unsealed details of the Flores copyright dispute. Documents produced by CBS, Lionsgate, and Ambry Genetics, totaling nearly 1,500 pages, definitively proved that Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios engaged in independent creation and never had any access to Flores' script. Furthermore, the evidence showed that the original copyright litigation ended in a voluntary, non-confidential settlement where both parties agreed to hold each other harmless. In the settlement, both sides expressly denied any liability or wrongdoing. Friedman's court filings proved that he merely restated the non-confidential facts of this exoneration to the media when asked about his past representation of Flores. By successfully demonstrating that Baldoni had zero access to the script and was completely cleared of the copyright infringement allegations years ago, Baldoni's team has effectively neutralized a key talking point used by Lively's camp. Legal commentators have noted that the failure to make the copyright smear stick is embarrassing for Lively's broader legal strategy, as it undermines the attempt to paint Baldoni as a serial bad actor in the industry. The failed settlement conference. The news of Baldoni's exoneration in the copyright matter comes on the heels of a tense, hours-long showdown in federal court. On Wednesday, February 11, 2026, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni came face-to-face in court for the first time since their legal battle began more than a year prior. The estranged co-stars were ordered to attend a mandatory settlement conference at the Daniel Patrick Moynihan United States Courthouse in Manhattan. The purpose of the conference, overseen by Magistrate Judge Sarah Cave, was to determine if the $550 million legal dispute could be resolved quietly behind closed doors, avoiding a highly publicized and potentially damaging jury trial. Lively arrived at the federal courthouse alone, while Baldoni was accompanied by his wife, Emily. Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, who has been heavily implicated in Baldoni's countersuits, was not present for the proceedings. Smiling at a small crowd of media gathered outside, the actors entered the courthouse but declined to speak to reporters. For more than 6 hours, Judge Cave engaged in shuttle diplomacy, going back and forth between the two legal teams who spent the majority of the day stationed in entirely separate courtrooms. Despite the lengthy negotiations, the talks ultimately collapsed. Leaving the federal courthouse separately, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, confirmed the outcome to the press. He described the talks as unsuccessful, though he diplomatically added that there's always a chance of a settlement in the future, and that he remains very hopeful about the trajectory of the case. Because no agreement was made, the explosive legal battle is now locked in for a trial date of May 18, 2026. The origins of Hollywood's ugliest feud. To understand the immense stakes of the impending May trial, it is necessary to trace the feud back to the set of It Ends With Us. Based on the wildly popular 2016 novel by Colleen Hoover, the romantic drama was highly anticipated. Baldoni secured the rights to the book, directing the film and starring as Ryle Kankik, while Lively was cast as the protagonist, Lily Bloom, and brought on as a producer. While the film was a massive commercial success upon its release in August 2024, surpassing box office expectations with an $80 million global debut, the promotional tour was a disaster of PR. Internet sleuths and fans quickly noticed that the cast was heavily divided. Lively and the rest of the cast promoted the film entirely separately from Baldoni. Lively also faced severe online backlash for her seemingly light-hearted, fashion-focused approach to the press tour, which critics felt trivialized the film's heavy themes of domestic violence and emotional abuse. The rumors of behind-the-scenes turmoil exploded into formal legal action in December 2024. Lively filed a bombshell complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, which she subsequently escalated into a federal lawsuit against Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios. In her suit, Lively accused Baldoni of subjecting her to sexual harassment and fostering a hostile, sexually charged work environment that marginalized women on set. Furthermore, Lively alleged that after she voiced her concerns to production, Baldoni and his crisis communications team coordinated a massive, multi-tiered smear campaign against her. Lively's legal team claimed that Baldoni engaged in unlawful retaliatory astroturfing, the practice of masking the sponsors of a message to make it appear as though it originates from grassroots participants, to destroy her personal and professional reputation. Lively is seeking total damages that currently stand at an astonishing $550 million. The $400 million countersuit and dismissals. Baldoni vehemently denied all Lively's allegations, with his legal representatives describing her claims as completely false, outrageous, and intentionally salacious, as well as amounting to nothing more than petty slights. Refusing to take the accusations lying down, Baldoni launched a historic legal counteroffensive. On January 16, 2025, Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios filed a 179-page, $400 million countersuit against Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and their publicists. In his lawsuit, Baldoni accused the Hollywood power couple of civil extortion, defamation, and invasion of privacy. Baldoni alleged that Lively and Reynolds hijacked the creative control of the film from Baldoni, mishandled the press campaign, and then fabricated the harassment allegations to scapegoat him for the resulting PR fallout, actively seeking to drive his production company out of business. Simultaneously, Baldoni sued the New York Times for $250 million, claiming an article they published detailing Lively's allegations was defamatory, relied entirely on her self-serving narrative, and was rife with inaccuracies. However, Baldoni's aggressive countersuits were ultimately derailed by the courts. On June 10, 2025, U.S. District Judge Livis Lemon threw out Baldoni's $400 million defamation lawsuit against Lively and Reynolds. Judge Lemon ruled that Lively's allegations, because they were made as part of formal legal action and civil rights complaints, were protected under litigation privilege. This legal doctrine ensures that statements made in the course of judicial proceedings cannot form the basis of defamation. Judge Lemon also dismissed Baldoni's $250 million suit against the New York Times, ruling that the newspaper's reporting was protected. Baldoni's legal team sought to subpoena Swift, alleging that Lively had weaponized her friendship with the singer and her husband Ryan Reynolds to coerce Baldoni into accepting Lively's unauthorized rewrites of the It Ends With Us script. Baldoni's team shockingly alleged that Lively had even blackmailed Swift with the threat of leaking private text messages to guarantee her public support during the controversy. Swift emphatically denied any involvement in the film's production. The court ultimately condemned Baldoni's subpoena request as an abuse of process, forcing him to withdraw it. However, the judge did grant Baldoni's team access to specific text conversations between Lively and Swift, which were officially unsealed on January 20, 2026, ahead of summary judgment hearings. The unsealed evidence provided a fascinating look into Lively's private support network. In the text exchanges, Lively spoke openly with Swift about the trouble she was experiencing on the set of the 2024 movie, at one point referring to Baldoni as her doofus director. Lively's legal team, led by attorney Sigrid McCauley, pointed to these unsealed texts as a massive victory for their side. The newly unsealed evidence shows the concerns of Miss Lively and others were documented in real time as early as spring 2023, and Wayfarer understood them as sexual harassment concerns, McCauley stated to the press. The evidence also documents how Wayfarer refused to investigate, but instead attempted to bury Miss Lively and others who spoke up through retaliation. Brian Friedman countered this narrative, maintaining that a simple read of the newly released message exchanges make the truth abundantly clear, and that the evidence does not support the claims as a matter of law. The road to the May 2026 trial. As of late February 2026, the battle lines are permanently drawn. Baldoni's recent motion to have Lively's lawsuit entirely thrown out, arguing her complaints were merely a litany of minor grievances rather than an objectively hostile environment, remains highly contested by Lively's team, who accuse him of trying to avoid accountability. With the failed February 11th settlement talks in the rearview mirror and the attempt to smear Baldoni via the Travis Flores copyright case officially debunked by documentary evidence, both sides are now aggressively preparing for the May 18th, 2026 trial date. The implications of this trial extend far beyond the reputations of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. The case has captivated Hollywood because it touches on the most sensitive third rails of the modern entertainment industry: the handling of on-set sexual harassment, the immense power dynamics wielded by A-list stars and their superstar spouses, and the terrifying new reality of astroturfing and weaponized PR firms manipulating public sentiment. If Lively succeeds in court, it will serve as a stark warning to directors and production companies about the financial and legal ruin that awaits those who attempt to bury harassment claims through media manipulation. Conversely, if Baldoni prevails, riding the momentum of his recent copyright exoneration and the dismissal of Lively's emotional distress claims, it will reinforce his narrative that he was the victim of an orchestrated corporate takeover by one of Hollywood's most powerful couples. For now, the public, the press, and the entertainment industry can only wait for May 18th, when a New York jury will finally decide how this story ends. In the annals of Hollywood feuds, few have escalated with the speed, ferocity, and sheer financial scale of the war between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. What began as whispered rumors of on-set tension during the filming of the 2024 romantic drama It Ends With Us has metastasized into a sprawling $500 million legal labyrinth. Now, with mandatory settlement talks having officially collapsed in mid-February 2026, the estranged co-stars are hurtling toward a May 18, 2026 trial date that promises to expose the darkest, most cutthroat mechanics of the modern entertainment industry. The upcoming trial has gripped Hollywood, pitting two immense power players against each other and raising profound questions about #MeToo era accountability, the weaponization of public relations, and the overwhelming influence of A-list celebrities and their superstar spouses. Here is the definitive, comprehensive breakdown of how a highly anticipated cinematic adaptation devolved into one of the most toxic, high-stakes legal showdowns in entertainment history. The collapse of the February 2026 settlement talks. On Wednesday, February 11, 2026, the quiet halls of the Manhattan Federal Courthouse became the focal point of the global entertainment press. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni arrived to face off for a mandatory court-ordered settlement conference representing a final judicial effort to resolve their bitter dispute before presenting it to a jury. The stakes were astronomical. Lively's lawsuit against Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios seeks a staggering $500 million in damages, alleging severe sexual harassment and a coordinated, retaliatory smear campaign. Arriving at the courthouse, the visual contrast between the two stars was stark. Despite a bizarre sartorial coincidence, both actors arrived wearing matching olive green jackets. Baldoni walked in hand with his wife Emily, offering smiles to the gathered media, while Lively arrived alone, maintaining a stern, composed demeanor in a dark coat. Neither spoke to the press as they entered the building. For more than 6 hours, U.S. Magistrate Judge Sarah Cave oversaw the mediation. As a standard in highly acrimonious civil proceedings, Lively and Baldoni were kept in entirely separate rooms for the duration of the day. Judge Cave engaged in shuttle diplomacy, physically moving back and forth between the two legal camps to explore any potential avenues for a financial or public resolution. According to court documents, each side was permitted a 10 to 15-minute presentation summarizing the core issues they believed the opposing party needed to consider before the judge commenced private discussions. By Wednesday evening, it was clear that the chasm between the two parties was too vast to bridge. The actors left the courthouse separately, stepping into waiting vehicles in silence. Outside, Baldoni's formidable defense attorney, Hollywood veteran Brian Friedman, confirmed to reporters that the talks were unsuccessful in reaching any kind of resolution. However, Friedman projected a calm confidence regarding the failure to settle. While noting that there's always a chance for a future agreement, he made it clear that Baldoni's team is not intimidated by the prospect of a jury trial. "We're looking forward to it," Friedman stated before departing in an SUV. Because no deal emerged, the case is now locked in for a trial date of May 18, 2026. The trial was originally slated for March 2026, but U.S. District Court Judge Louis Lemon delayed the proceedings, notifying both legal teams that, as important as this case is, criminal trials take precedent. The genesis of the rift. To understand how a multi-million-dollar mediation collapsed, one must look back to the origins of the film that started it all. It Ends With Us, based on the 2016 Juggernaut novel by Colleen Hoover, was a highly coveted property. Justin Baldoni championed the adaptation early on, securing the rights through his company, Wayfarer Studios. He took on the dual roles of director and the male lead, Riley Kincaid, a character whose charming exterior masks a terrifying propensity for domestic violence. Blake Lively was cast as the protagonist, Lily Bloom, and was elevated to an executive producer role. When the film debuted in August 2024, it was a massive commercial success. However, the promotional tour quickly became a masterclass in disastrous PR. Internet sleuths and industry insiders noticed a glaring divide. Lively, Hoover, and the rest of the cast promoted the film entirely separately from Baldoni. Furthermore, Lively faced a barrage of criticism for her approach to the press tour. While Baldoni utilized his solo interviews to speak gravely about the epidemic of domestic abuse, Lively was perceived by many as treating the tour like a fashion event, encouraging fans to grab your florals, and viewing the film as a light-hearted rom-com. Behind the scenes, the tension was boiling over. Lively's camp allegedly felt that Baldoni had created an uncomfortable and unprofessional environment, while Baldoni's camp reportedly felt that Lively, backed by her powerful husband Ryan Reynolds, was staging a creative coup to seize control of the final cut of the film. In December 2024, the whispers officially transformed into warfare. The $500 million harassment and astroturfing lawsuit. On December 31, 2024, Blake Lively filed a bombshell federal lawsuit against Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios and PR executives Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel in New York, escalating an earlier complaint she had filed with the California Civil Rights Department. Lively's lawsuit seeking $500 million in damages outlined a series of severe allegations regarding Baldoni's conduct on the set. She accused the director of sexual harassment, claiming he fostered an unsafe and highly uncomfortable working environment. Among the specific claims, Lively alleged that Baldoni routinely improvised intimate scenes without her prior consent, forcing her into lingering kisses and unwanted physical touches. Furthermore, the complaint alleged that Baldoni made inappropriate comments about her weight, played explicit videos for her on set, and openly discussed his previous struggles with pornography addiction, all of which contributed to a toxic atmosphere. But Lively's loss. According to Lively, the intense internet backlash she received during the August 2024 press tour was not a natural public reaction, but rather a manufactured, multi-tiered assault coordinated by Baldoni's team to destroy her reputation, silence her harassment claims, and scapegoat her for the production's internal turmoil. Baldoni's crisis management firm, dragged directly into the litigation, has steadfastly denied any unethical behavior, maintaining that they operated exactly as any firm would when hired by a client experiencing threats by two extremely powerful people with unlimited resources. The $400 million counterstrike and summary judgments. Justin Baldoni vehemently denied Lively's allegations, viewing them not as genuine grievances, but rather a calculated effort to destroy him after he refused to cede total creative control of his film. Refusing to be placed solely on the defensive, Baldoni launched a historic counteroffensive. On January 16, 2025, Baldoni filed a colossal $400 million countersuit against Blake Lively, her husband Ryan Reynolds, and their powerhouse publicist Leslie Sloan. In his suit, Baldoni accused the Hollywood power couple of defamation, extortion, and invasion of privacy. He claimed that during a crisis meeting, Lively and Reynolds aggressively attempted to assert control over the film, hijacking the editing process and effectively robbing him of his directorial authority. When he resisted, Baldoni alleged, Lively fabricated the sexual harassment claims to permanently ruin his image and force Wayfarer Studios out of business. Simultaneously, Baldoni filed a separate defamation lawsuit against the New York Times, arguing that the publication's reporting on Lively's initial complaint relied entirely on her self-serving narrative and unfairly damaged his reputation. However, Baldoni's aggressive legal blitz was short-lived. In June